So it's Friday, February 26, 2021. This is the ridiculous family dog. Apparently looks very scary, but isn't scary. And she does not understand that you're supposed to. You're supposed to sleep under the blankets. Not on top of the blankets. He doesn't get that part. So today, my children were returned to the abuser. It's completely bizarre. It really is. It's completely bizarre. What CPS does is it's like they believe that the thing to do is just to repeat the exact same mistake over and over again and expect different results. That's what they do. They just expect different results from the exact same bad decision that they keep making. And by old school definition, that's the definition of insanity. But that's what CPS is doing. And over the past more than 3 years now, CPS has done so much damage to my children and so much damage to me. There just are no words. There are no words. I completed, like I said, the treatment for the mental disorder that I don't have, that I've never had, that I have no history of having. And the particular mental disorder that I was misdiagnosed with, the person is supposed to be emotionally erratic and unstable and have extreme impulsive reactions and get very emotionally worked up and a lot of other things, low impulse control. But they didn't have any actual behavioral evidence of anything I actually did, especially not in any kind of partially normal or normal situation that would support that misdiagnosis. Anyway, I completed the treatment, but my older son was basically told, it's right in the CPS notes, that it was not an option to come home, to my home, because I hadn't completed what I was supposed to do, when the only thing CPS said I had to do, the only thing CPS ever told my attorney or anyone I had to do, was a treatment for that disorder I don't have. So I was literally 98% done, 99% done with that treatment. The only reason, when CPS told my oldest son this, and the only reason I was not completely done was because the therapist was sick with COVID-19, plus she just had a surgery. technically she had the surgery first and then she contracted COVID-19 and she was sick. Other than that, I was done. But CPS told my son that I hadn't done the treatment, I hadn't done the program, so he could not come live with me. And so he basically had an option between continuing in foster care or being adopted by the foster parents or going back to his abusive father. In addition, CPS had consistently given the abusive parent a lot more access, as well as family talk therapy with my children, which they denied me. I requested it repeatedly, but they kept denying it. And so the abuser was able to convince my children that he's sorry and he's changed. But yet, many of his behaviors, from just the little bits I see of him, I don't speak to him. He's not here. But the behaviors I see in his actions that are displayed in court and in an email he sent and things like that, I didn't reply to the email, but he's the same. He's exactly the same. He's not sorry for what he did for so many years. He's not better. He's not different, other than he's, obviously, I'm sure he's going to be more careful now not to get caught. And not only that, here I basically had everything 99% finished, except for the therapist who just had a surgery, had COVID-19. I had 2 sessions left, which I completed before court and proved it. But still, they gave my children back to the abuser today. And Pup, in the video earlier, I'm going to have to, rehome her before everything's said and done. It just makes no sense. And I can't help but think that my children believe so many things that are untrue about me at this point that because there's just been almost no contact. CPS has made it so not because of excuses like I couldn't get to visits or I couldn't get to therapy with my children, or I couldn't get to things, not because of that. That's what's going to happen moving forward. But because for 3 years, the abuser had a lot of access and a lot of therapy, like family talk therapy with my children, and I was just denied that, and I basically had supervised visits once a week, even though CPS is not accusing me of any form of child abuse whatsoever. They're not accusing me of drug abuse, drug use, alcoholism. They're not accusing me of reckless driving. They're not accusing me of anything. All they accuse me of is having a mental disorder that I didn't have, that I completed the treatment for. That's it. But the abuser was caught on nanny cam severely battering children, verbally and mentally also abusing children, and was proven with psychological testing and past reports to be a child molester. And they still gave him incredible preferential treatment and opportunities, right to the worst of it most recently for the past probably over 6 months of family therapy, where he would be able to speak to my children and they could speak to him, and I didn't. I was denied that. The supervised visits I had, basically all you could do is play board games or do an art project or something like that. There couldn't be any dialogue. So whatever confusion my children have or had, whatever anger they have because of whatever they've been told or whatever they've experienced, or whatever they think I've done that I haven't done, or whatever they think I have not done, like the treatment, that I really have done, that they haven't been able to express that. They haven't been able to ask me any questions. Why this? Why that? What's happening? They haven't been able to talk about coming home to me or not, or why they want to, or why they don't want to, or what they really want, or what I have to offer them at this point, or what I don't, or anything. They haven't been able to talk about in a room with me about why I couldn't stop him from abusing them. I mean, the reason I couldn't is because nobody would believe me. Nobody would believe me. The police wouldn't believe me. Nobody. He just really charmed them all, and then that's it. And they would just make me give him the children back, even though he didn't have, at that time, legal custody. Of course, with what CPS is doing, he's going to have legal custody. And then I'm just done. I'm done. My children are my whole universe, my whole reason for being at all. And CPS keeps taking them and giving them to the abuser and never ever giving me an opportunity, even though there's not even one allegation that I ever abused. There's not one allegation I would ever molest or did ever molest. I never did. There's not an allegation that I verbally or mentally abused. There's nothing but this false allegation of a mental disorder I don't have that I completed the treatment for. And oh yes, now CPS says that my children aren't bonded to me. And that isn't true. It's not even true. But it is true that this situation that CPS has created, 3 years of me having almost nothing and the abuser having visits plus telephonic contact, plus the children were returned to him for a year and he continued to abuse them during this time period. He knew where the foster parents' home was. He'd been to the foster parents' home. I never had. And he was able to have family therapy, talk therapy with the children, and I was denied that. So CPS has created so much separation while leaving my children with such an incorrect impression of everything that's going on and everything that I did and didn't do or am doing and everything. My children have to be incredibly angry with me at this point and under some very wrong impressions about everything with me and around me. Plus, write in the notes, the CPS caseworker or the counselor, I don't remember which, for my children, literally told my son that he could not live with me because I hadn't finished the treatment, when I was 2 sessions away from finishing the treatment at that time, and the only reason there was a delay was because a therapist had surgery and then contracted COVID-19. And then when she recovered enough, I finished those 2 sessions before the court date when they decided to return my children. And at that court date and prior to it, my attorney asked for me to have family therapy with my children where we could talk, and it was denied. CPS denied it. They said no. CPS is insisting that my children are not bonded with me and that well, they were saying I didn't finish their treatment before. They're probably going to keep saying that, even though I have. And that my children want to live with their father. Well, then how come, they had to have that discussion with my son, telling him he didn't have a choice, he couldn't live with me because I hadn't finished the treatment. Why is that? Well, of course, it's because he wanted to explore that option of living with me and not being abused and not being scared and not being molested and not living in that horrible chaos and that situation. But CPS took that choice away from him. CPS won't even let me do visits with my children at a place where I could do the visits and maintain a job. I literally would have to give up my job to do the once a week, just play board games with my children on the way to CPS either severing my parental rights and completely giving them to the abuser, or if the abuser gets caught abusing again, if he gets caught. It's not if he does it, if he gets caught, because he's going to be more careful now. So if he gets caught, then they would just sever everybody's rights. And I've never even gotten questioned in court. The abuser has gotten plenty of time to speak in court. His attorney speaks eloquently in court. My attorney has said nothing in court except for telling me, well, you have to finish this treatment and then I'll have something to work with. So I finished the treatment. And then he said, well, you have to get a letter from the therapist that's positive. So I got a letter from the therapist that's positive. He said, well, the psychologist that oversees the supervised visits, the board game visits once a week, if there isn't anything positive from her in the report, then I don't have anything to work with. So apparently there were positive things from her in the report. And then then my attorney said, well, this hearing is for so-and-so, the abuser, my ex, so we can't do anything. They're going to give him the children. And so now, allegedly, and I'm sure he will, my attorney's going to create a motion asking for me to have a hearing. But my hearing, my first hearing ever in 3 years, that's about me and my children, us,